So when I first started working on the book, I thought I was going to focus on Shakespearean contemporary performance. And then I soon find out that I needed to work my way back in time to Shakespeare's own time to find out how Shakespeare originally sounded to his own audiences, in order to then work out how and when accents changed. Because with accents, what also changed was the way in which the plays were interpreted, and more generally how Shakespeare was understood as being accessible to either select audiences or more accessible to more widely diverse audiences. I've always been interested in Shakespearean performance, and I've been particularly interested in foreign productions of Shakespeare that tour to this country, and even more so to productions in English, but where the delivery of the language is inflected by national, international accents. Because I find that listening to Shakespeare in a different accent from the one that you're used to starts to make you aware of the expectations that you bring to the theatre. The last 400 years characterized by periods of relative homogeneity versus periods of quite intense acoustic change. And so I decided to focus obviously on these periods of great change. I focused on the impact of foreign productions on our sensitivity to sound, and how Shakespeare sounds and why that might be. And then I moved backwards to the early 20th century, when people started to experiment with original pronunciation. Normally, original pronunciation is associated with exercises in acoustic archaeology, and they're seen as quite conservative because they're believed to be aimed exclusively at recovering the original sound of Shakespearean performance in the early modern period. But actually, original pronunciation was also used by some pioneers, like a BBC radio producer called Mary Hope Allen, to widen audiences, to diversify audiences, to play with the way in which Shakespeare was sounding at the time on stage, which was quite standard and quite sophisticated and well spoken, to introduce a different range of sounds that would make people who would not necessarily go to the theatre interested. Accents say so much about your background, status, class, education, origin. As Shakespeare would put it, if your accent doesn't conform to standard pronunciation, you come across as an extravagant and wheeling stranger, as an alien, an interloper, or at best as an exotic other. I've always been really quite aware of how I sound, especially when I'm teaching Shakespeare, especially when I'm talking about Shakespeare, as right now, as I'm talking about my book about Shakespeare. Because although I've built my entire career on Shakespeare, and I must stress that I've only encountered unconditional tolerance for my acoustic diversity, I do sound different, and I have found myself negotiating kind of that difference in really interesting ways that then have made me more attuned to how accents also come across when actors perform Shakespeare on stage, because the stage is a key arena for the definition of identity and of national identity in particular, and it's been very much the case over the last 400 years. I'm currently preparing a new edition of Rich III for Arden 4, and I'm curating a collection of essays and an exhibition on wartime Shakespeare. For this project, myself and a team of colleagues from the English department and the War Studies department at King's are looking at how Shakespeare has been mobilized at times of conflict